If your heart is heavy tonight, say this with me. You wake up already tired. Not physically, but mentally. It's like your thoughts began racing before your eyes even opened. Lists, memories, fears, responsibilities. What you said, what you should have said, what you forgot, what you'll never forget. It never stops. And somewhere in all that noise, you wonder, where is God in all this? The noise inside doesn't sound like chaos all the time. Sometimes it sounds like order, productivity, logic, reason. But it's loud. It's constant. It doesn't let you breathe. You finish one task and 5 more appear. You try to pray, but your mind interrupts. You open your Bible, but anxiety reads over your shoulder. You want to hear God, but all you hear is the pressure of being everything for everyone. You try to be spiritual. You say the right things. You even try to slow down, but your soul is sprinting even when your body is still. You crave peace, but peace feels like a place that only exists in other people's lives. A distant, unreachable quiet that no amount of self-control can replicate. But what if peace isn't something you achieve? What if it's something you receive? The voice of God is rarely loud. It doesn't compete. It doesn't beg for attention. It speaks in stillness. And stillness is hard to find when the soundtrack of your life is filled with urgency, fear, and internal expectations. It's not that you're broken. It's not that you lack faith. It's not even that you don't want to hear Him. It's that no one ever taught you how to be still long enough to recognize His voice beneath the noise. That's where this begins. Not with performance, not with perfection, but with presence. The kind that says, I don't have to figure everything out right now. I just have to be here. Because somewhere inside you, there's a part that remembers what quiet feels like. There's a part of you that hasn't forgotten what it's like to feel peace, even if it's been a while. And that part is still reachable, still redeemable, still waiting for permission to rest. That's what Calm Your Heart was created for. Not for the perfect moments, for the honest ones. For people like me who are tired of hiding, but scared to fall apart. For souls who need structure, but not pressure. For hearts that need permission to rest before they recover. It's not a fix, it's a companion. A place to breathe when the world keeps spinning. A space where grace isn't rushed and peace doesn't feel like a performance. If this prayer feels like your own, then this journey is for you too. A path not paved by pressure, but by presence. Click the link in the pinned comment and give yourself a place to start healing. Not once you're strong. Right now, exactly as you are. Because mental noise is real. And it's exhausting. And no, you're not weak for struggling with it. But you are responsible for learning how to hear a better voice. The one that doesn't demand, doesn't accuse, doesn't exhaust. The one that calms. The one that speaks life. The one that reminds you who you really are. You were never created to carry the weight of endless thoughts on your own. You were created to bring them to God, not perfectly, not poetically, but honestly. That's what David did. His psalms weren't polished, they were raw. Why are you downcast, my soul? He asked. Why so disturbed within me? He didn't ignore the noise. He wrote it down, sang it out, placed it before God instead of pretending it didn't exist. You can do the same. You don't need to control every thought. You just need to know which ones are worth listening to. Not every internal voice is true. Not every thought deserves attention. And not every emotion has authority. But the voice of God does. And His voice speaks peace, not pressure. It calls you back, not away. It draws you into stillness, not more effort. And it always leaves you more whole than it found you. So if your mind has been racing, if your thoughts feel louder than your prayers, if you felt like you're losing the battle in your own head, know this. You're not alone. And you're not beyond help. There is rest for minds like yours. There is calm for hearts like yours. You just need to know where to turn when the noise returns. Because it will. But next time, you won't run from it. You'll return to peace. Not as an escape, but as a home. And peace is a person. His name is Jesus. He doesn't shout over your chaos. He whispers under it. And He's whispering now. Can you hear Him? Not with your ears, with your heart, with your spirit, with that deep place inside that knows truth when it's spoken. Let Him lead you there. to the place where your thoughts slow down and your soul stands still, to the place where calm is not a luxury, it's a promise, to the place where the only voice that matters isn't the loudest, it's the most loving. And He is always speaking love over you. It's always harder when the world goes quiet. The lights are off. The conversations have stopped. The texts have slowed. The noise of the day has faded. And that's when your mind starts talking the loudest. It whispers old fears. It replays moments you can't change. It conjures up scenarios that haven't even happened and convinces you they're just around the corner. You toss and turn, trying to find a position your soul can rest in. But your body won't settle, and your heart won't still. That's what anxiety does. It waits for the stillness. And then it speaks. Not loudly, but consistently. Not dramatically, but convincingly. It doesn't need volume to dominate. It only needs space. And in the sacred hush of night, when all distractions disappear, the space becomes vast. That's when your thoughts begin to spiral. That's when sleep feels far. That's when your chest feels tight, your breath short, your muscles tense, even though nothing's physically wrong. You reach for something to ground you. But pillows aren't enough. Warm blankets don't silence internal storms. The air feels heavy, even though it hasn't changed. You tell yourself, I'm just overthinking, but that doesn't make the ache leave. Your heart races as if it's running from something, but there's nowhere to go. You're here, awake, aware, and anxious. This pattern is familiar to so many. It's not a lack of faith. It's not a sign of spiritual weakness. It's not failure. It's your nervous system reacting to fear, to pressure, to pain, some of it known, some of it hidden. It's the part of your soul that doesn't feel safe yet, and it doesn't know how to switch off just because it's bedtime. In the Psalms, David described sleepless nights not as shameful, but as sacred. He spoke to his soul in the middle of his distress. He wrestled openly with his fears. He didn't mask his emotions. He brought them into the presence of God, even in the dark. On my bed I remember you. I think of you through the watches of the night. Because you are my help, I sing in the shadow of your wings. That wasn't triumph. That was trust. That was a weary man choosing to let God meet him where the fear was, not after it disappeared, but inside of it. That same space is available to you, even if your body is restless, even if your heart is pounding, even if your mind is flooded with what-ifs and worst-case scenarios. You're not required to fix it before you can rest in Him. You're simply invited to stop running from yourself. Sometimes the most spiritual act you can take at night is to whisper, I'm scared, but I still believe you're near. You don't have to conquer the fear to be in communion with God. He doesn't wait for your anxiety to quiet down before He draws close. He comes into it. He walks into the unrest. He sits with you while the world sleeps. And when you breathe, however shakily, He listens. The soul wasn't made to carry this much pressure in silence. That's why night feels so overwhelming. The distractions are gone, and all that's left is whatever you haven't processed. But night is also a time when heaven leans in. God has always done holy things in the dark. He spoke to Jacob in dreams. He whispered to Samuel while he was lying in bed. He stood by Paul in prison in the dead of night. He's not intimidated by the dark. He moves in it. And tonight, He's not asking you to rise up with strength. He's simply asking you to let go of the lie that you're alone. You're not, even now. Even with the tightness in your chest. Even with the cycle of thoughts you can't break. Even if sleep feels impossible and the hours stretch longer than your peace can handle. Even in this, you are not abandoned. Maybe peace won't come all at once. Maybe the storm inside you won't settle instantly. But if you can believe, even for one breath, that you are held by something bigger than your fear, then rest has already begun. Not physical rest, perhaps, but soul rest. Sometimes the most powerful prayer at night is the one you pray without words. The exhale that says, I'm still here. The silence that says, I don't know what to say, but I want to be with you. The breath that says, help me, that's enough. In fact, sometimes it's more than enough. It's sacred. It's holy ground. You don't need fancy words or spiritual certainty. You need honesty. You need presence. And the beautiful thing is, God brings His. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to summon it. He comes low to where you are. There's a reason Scripture says he gives his beloved sleep, not because they have no anxiety, but because he knows the human soul needs rest to survive. He's not disappointed when you're restless. He's compassionate. He understands the limits of your frame. And when he says, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest," he includes nights like these. Anxiety doesn't disqualify you from rest. It simply shows you where your heart needs comfort. And comfort begins not when you push fear away, but when you stop letting it be the only voice you listen to. Fear will speak, but faith will whisper too. And in the stillness of this moment, if you pause long enough to listen, not to your fear, but to something softer, you'll begin to hear another voice. One that doesn't rush, one that doesn't accuse, one that doesn't shame you for feeling. It simply says, "You are not alone. You are safe. I'm here." And maybe that voice won't erase the fear. Maybe it won't stop the racing thoughts immediately, but it will begin to steady you. One breath at a time, one moment at a time, one sacred pause in the middle of the storm. And slowly, you'll start to believe again, not that the fear is gone, but that it's not stronger than the one holding you. That's when things begin to shift, not on the outside, but inside of you, where peace is planted, where hope grows again, even if it's small, where your body begins to trust that it can let go, even if it doesn't feel like it yet. You were never asked to carry this alone, and you're not expected to silence anxiety by yourself. Sometimes your spirit just needs a rhythm to return to when the noise inside gets too loud, a place your soul can recognize, even when your thoughts are scattered, a presence that's steady, even when everything else feels fragile. That's what you have access to tonight. Not a solution, a sanctuary, not a formula, a father, not a performance, a person who sees past the surface and holds the hidden places. So lie down, even if you don't feel calm. Close your eyes, even if they fill with tears. Whisper his name, even if your voice shakes. Let this moment be what it is, not perfect, not peaceful, not fixed, just honest, just surrendered, just sacred. And somewhere between the inhale and exhale, the questions and the silence, the fear and the faith, something within you will begin to remember what peace feels like. Not because anxiety disappears, but because you remembered you were never meant to battle it alone. There are times when you feel trapped inside your own head, when thoughts run faster than breath, and your body tries to keep pace with a storm that hasn't happened. It's not that you don't believe anymore. It's that believing feels distant when your mind won't stop replaying every failure, forecasting every fear, reminding you of every unfinished piece of your life. In those moments, silence is a battleground, not a sanctuary. You're not running from God, you're just trying to survive the volume inside yourself. It's easy to think that Jesus waits for a calmer version of you. The version who can quote scripture fluently, focus deeply, pray uninterrupted. The version who doesn't wrestle with invisible tension or internal panic. But the truth is far more beautiful and far less demanding. Jesus doesn't need you to escape your mind to meet him. He enters it. He walks into the middle of your mental noise, doesn't flinch. He comes, not when it's quiet, but when you're most overwhelmed. That's hard to grasp if you've been taught that closeness with God depends on mental peace. Because when your thoughts won't still, you assume he must be far. Yet, Scripture tells a different story. God is near to the brokenhearted, not the composed. He's close to the weary, not just the worshipful. His nearness isn't a reward for clarity. It's a promise for the disoriented. He's not pacing outside the storm in your mind. He's standing in the center of it, not to criticize the chaos, but to hold you through it. Your thoughts don't intimidate him. Your spirals don't surprise him. The pace of your worry doesn't push him away. In fact, they draw him closer. Not because he needs to fix you, but because he refuses to leave you alone in it. That's what makes him different. You don't have to hide what's going on inside. You don't have to polish your mind into perfect order before inviting him in. You don't have to wait until your thoughts are clean or holy or hopeful. You can be spiraling, afraid, uncertain, and still be fully embraced. There's a line between being mentally busy and spiritually abandoned. You may feel lost inside your head, but that doesn't mean God has left your side. He's still right there, offering stability not through logic, but through love. You see, his love doesn't demand emotional stillness. It meets you in the earthquake. It sits with you in the confusion. It speaks softly when everything inside feels loud. And often, that voice doesn't interrupt your thoughts with thunder. It moves gently underneath them, like a steady current you forgot was there. If you pause just long enough, you might feel it. Not an instruction, not a solution, but a presence. Not demanding you to be different, just staying long enough for you to feel safe again. Your mind has likely learned to protect itself. It predicts pain, so it won't be surprised. It rehearses failure, so it won't be ashamed. It builds narratives not because you want to be anxious, but because you've needed survival tools in a world that doesn't always offer soft landings. But now those tools feel heavy. You carry scenarios that haven't happened, conversations that never occurred, emotions that were never yours to hold. And that's where grace begins to work, not by shaming the way your mind functions, but by gently reminding you, there is someone here who understands even this, even the thoughts you wish you didn't have, even the doubts you keep quiet, even the fears you think disqualify you from faith. He sees them. He knows them. He doesn't leave because of them. And something changes when you realize that, not the thoughts themselves, but the way you hold them. You no longer grip them like survival gear. You begin to let them loosen because someone stronger is holding you now. Let that reality sink deeper than the panic. You are not navigating this alone. You are not failing spiritually because your thoughts wander. You are not broken because anxiety comes in waves. You are not disqualified from peace just because you don't know how to reach it on command. Peace isn't always the result of control. Sometimes it's the result of surrender. Not surrendering to the anxiety, but to the truth that you are loved even inside of it. That kind of love is what begins to rewire the mind. Not through pressure, through presence. Not through productivity, through permission to feel, to slow, to simply be. Sometimes you just need someone to sit with you and say, you don't have to solve this all right now. That's what Jesus does. He doesn't rush you through the valley. He walks it with you. He doesn't demand instant calm. He offers unwavering company. And somewhere inside that companionship, something begins to shift. You stop expecting yourself to outrun the whirlwind. You start realizing the whirlwind isn't bigger than him. That realization doesn't always show up like a miracle. Sometimes it's subtle, like noticing your breath again. Like realizing you didn't spiral as deep tonight as you did yesterday. Like remembering in the middle of anxious thoughts that there's still a small voice underneath it all that says, I'm here. And maybe that's the most important thing you can hold on to in seasons like this. Not the absence of the storm, but the presence of the Savior in it. Because that presence doesn't just tolerate your struggle, it honors it. It says, even this is worth staying close for. Not just the moments when you feel spiritual. Not just the days when your mind feels light. Even this. Even now. Even when nothing makes sense and everything feels fragile. Even when you've tried every coping mechanism and still feel overwhelmed. Even when prayer feels more like silence than comfort. Even then, he's closer than your thoughts. Not conceptually. Literally. Your brain may race, but your soul is still anchored. Not to your discipline. To his nearness. There's a difference between being distracted and being abandoned. And your distraction doesn't cancel his devotion. He stays. Not because you earned it. Because he loves. And love doesn't back away when things get messy. It leans in and keeps leaning. Until you begin to remember what it feels like to rest without needing to escape your own head. That's what healing looks like sometimes. Not escaping, returning to the truth, to the breath, to the nearness you forgot was here all along. And in that return, something awakens. Not instant peace, but a deeper kind. The kind that doesn't rely on your ability to control thoughts. The kind that settles in regardless of the noise. The kind that gently reminds you, again and again, you are not your thoughts. You are not your spiral. You are not your fear. You are held. You are known. You are safe. Even here. Even now. Not every battle is won by holding tighter. Sometimes the miracle begins the moment you exhale. You've been taught to brace yourself, Tension has become second nature. You wake up with your jaw clenched, shoulders tight, heart already running. Before the day even starts, your body is preparing for war. And maybe you don't even notice it anymore. You've adapted so well to anxiety that stillness feels foreign. Letting go feels unsafe. Your nervous system is on high alert, but your faith is still intact. You believe, but your breath hasn't caught up. That's where exhaustion lives. Not just in your schedule, but in your body's inability to stop bracing. You're constantly scanning for what could go wrong, running through what you said yesterday, rehearsing how to keep everything afloat tomorrow. But life isn't meant to be lived in a defensive posture. You weren't created to carry yourself through survival mode indefinitely. That's not resilience. That's depletion with a name tag. God didn't design you to live clenched. He didn't form your heart for constant resistance. He didn't call you into faith just to see how long you could hold your breath and still function. He invites you into rhythm, into release, into something gentler than fear, softer than pressure. But that invitation doesn't come through force. It arrives through presence. You begin to sense it when you're quiet enough to notice how tired you are, not just emotionally, but physically. You start to hear it when you realize that your breath has been shallow for hours. You feel it when, for no dramatic reason, the tears just start falling. Because something inside you knows it's time to surrender, not out of failure, but as an act of trust. The breath is where it begins. Not because breathing fixes everything, but because it interrupts what fear tries to control. Fear wants you in a hurry. It wants you tense, urgent, panicked. But love calls you to slow down. And in that slowness, you start to reconnect with what's always been true. God isn't asking you to manage everything. He's inviting you to release what was never yours to hold. That release isn't lazy. It's holy. The world rewards hustle. Heaven values surrender. In the moment you choose to release your grip, not on responsibility, but on the illusion of control, you step into a different kind of strength. The kind that isn't powered by adrenaline, but by grace. That grace doesn't always shout. It arrives like a whisper in the space between thoughts. It moves like wind between your ribs, reminding you that you don't have to hold yourself up all the time. It settles deep in your spirit, not with explanations, but with permission. Permission to stop pretending. Permission to breathe without apologizing. Permission to cry without collapsing. Permission to let go without having every detail figured out. God isn't waiting for you to earn that permission. He's already placed it inside of you. His Spirit doesn't force rest. It offers it. It invites you not to abandon what matters, but to release what's slowly breaking you from the inside. Even Jesus exhaled. On the cross, his final act was to breathe out. Not in defeat, but in completion. He let go, not as a last resort, but as a fulfillment. And if the Son of God could surrender in that moment, what makes you believe you must keep everything held together with your own strength? Letting go doesn't mean you don't care. It means you finally trust that you're not the only one carrying it. So much of anxiety is rooted in the belief that if you don't keep it all together, everything will fall apart. That if you let go, you'll lose control. That if you release, you'll become irresponsible. But what if the opposite is true? What if letting go is what gives God room to hold what's always been too heavy for your hands? The weight you feel might not be the weight of your calling, it might be the weight of your control. That kind of pressure builds slowly. It doesn't always feel like rebellion. Sometimes it looks like overfunctioning, like trying harder than you were meant to, like carrying decisions you were never meant to carry alone. And God, in His kindness, keeps inviting you back, not to shame you, not to expose your weakness, but to lead you back to rhythm, breath, trust. You don't have to do it all. You never did. That's not neglect. That's obedience. Obedience isn't just about taking action. Sometimes it's about releasing it, leaving room for God to be God and for you to be human. Obedience says, I've done what I can, and now I return this to your hands. That's what breathing reminds you. That life doesn't come from your effort alone. That something sacred happens when you loosen your grip. That heaven is not impressed by your tension. It's moved by your trust. Let yourself return to that place. Slowly, gently, not as a performance, but as a process. Every time you exhale and choose not to pick that weight back up, you're stepping into a different kind of intimacy with God. You're admitting that He can be trusted with what you can't control. You're allowing your body to come into agreement with what your spirit already believes. This is worship too. Not the kind that sings loud or moves fast. The kind that happens in stillness. The kind that happens when tears fall without explanation. The kind that happens when all you can do is breathe and say, "Here, Lord, I can't do this on my own." And that moment, that's not weakness. That's communion. He meets you there, not to demand more from you, but to remind you that He is enough. Your shoulders were not built to carry eternity. Your breath was not made to live in anxiety. Your mind was not designed to run without rest. And your soul is not meant to move without rhythm. Return to rhythm. Return to rest. Return to breath. Inhale grace. Exhale control. Inhale truth. Exhale fear. Inhale peace. Exhale performance. Every breath becomes a prayer when you give it meaning. And even when you don't have words, your body prays for you. Your lungs testify that God still gives life. Your chest rises not because you earned another moment, but because He sustains it. And if He sustains breath, He can sustain your story. You're not being asked to release everything forever. Just now. Just this moment. Just enough to remember that you're not alone. That's where freedom begins. Not in a giant act of courage, but in 1,000 small surrenders. One breath at a time. You don't have to solve everything tonight. You don't have to plan every outcome. You don't have to prove anything. You only have to let go. Not into nothing. Into someone. The one who catches what falls. The one who knows what you've been holding. The one who already saw the moment you'd come to the end of yourself and made space for you there. You've made it this far. Not because you never let go, but because grace keeps catching you when you do. Keep breathing. Let the rhythm lead you. Let the breath remind you. Let this moment teach you that surrender isn't a sign you're falling apart. It's a sign you're falling into the arms of someone who knows how to carry what you never could. You don't have to earn that place. You already have it. Even now. Even here. Especially here. Let go. And breathe again. God, I don't even know where to start. Some days, it feels like there's too much going on inside to name any of it. There's a heaviness in my chest that I can't quite explain. I carry it everywhere. In my words, in my posture, in my silence. And even when I'm surrounded by people, I still feel isolated. I try to smile. I try to stay strong. I try to keep going because slowing down feels like defeat. But deep inside, something aches for healing, not just for my body, but for my soul. I need you, Lord. Not just to fix things, but to find me again. Because somewhere in the middle of all this busyness, all this fear, all this uncertainty, I feel like I've drifted away from who I really am. I've lost the softness I used to have, the joy I used to carry, the lightness I used to wake up with. And even though I know you're near, there are days I forget what your voice sounds like. I want to hear it again, not as a distant echo, but as a whisper I recognize. I'm not asking for perfection. I'm asking for presence. Please sit with me in this brokenness, not to rush me through it, but to hold me in it. I've grown so used to pretending that I forget how to be real. I measure my emotions before I express them. I filter my prayers to sound more acceptable. I carry the weight of what I can't say because I'm afraid that if I really let it out, I might fall apart. But you're not afraid of my honesty. You never have been. You don't need me to impress you. You only want me to trust you. So here I am, no filters, no script, no answers. Just a tired soul with open hands, asking for what only you can give, healing from the inside out. Touch the places I don't even know are hurting. Speak to the parts of me that have grown silent from disappointment. I've been let down before. I've prayed and waited, hoped and been hurt, believed and still bled. And some of those wounds are still open. Some of that pain is still fresh. I don't know how to close it on my own. I don't know how to make peace with the things that didn't turn out the way I planned. But you were there even then. And you're still here now, ready to do what I can. So I give you my fears, the loud ones and the quiet ones. I give you my questions, the ones I've dared to ask and the ones I've buried deep. I give you my body, tired, tense, aching for rest. I give you my heart, guarded, bruised, and still beating. And I ask you, gently but desperately, to heal me. Not just so I can feel better, but so I can live whole again. I want to be soft again, Lord. I want to believe like I used to. I want to laugh without fear and love without walls. But somewhere along the way, I became guarded. Somewhere along the way, I stopped trusting people and even stopped trusting myself. It's hard to admit that out loud, but I know you already see it. You see the way I flinch at hope, the way I prepare for disappointment, even in good moments, the way I hold back joy because I'm afraid of how short it might last. And I don't want to live that way anymore. I don't want to measure my life by how much pain I can avoid. I want to be present, even when it hurts, even when it's scary, even when it's messy, because I believe you're here, even in the mess, especially in the mess. So help me to breathe again, Lord, not just physically, but deeply, from a place in my soul that trusts you still have good things for me. Teach me how to rest, not just when the world is calm, but even when it's not. Remind me that healing isn't always loud. Sometimes it comes in the quiet, in the stillness between words, in the pause between panic and peace. Let this be one of those moments. A quiet return, a small exhale, a sacred undoing of everything I thought I had to carry alone. Help me release the pressure to have answers, to be okay all the time, to explain myself perfectly, to heal on a schedule. You never asked me to heal myself. You asked me to come. So here I am again, not with perfection, but with permission to be human, to be weak, to be open. Place your hand on the parts of me that feel unworthy of healing. Speak truth where lies have rooted themselves. Uproot the shame that I've lived with so long. I forgot it wasn't mine. Give me the courage to grieve what I lost without believing I've lost you. You're still here, still holding me, still writing a story that doesn't end in pain, even when I don't understand the plot, even when the chapter I'm living feels heavy, even when healing takes longer than I hoped. Your timing isn't punishment, it's protection. And even when I can't see it, I choose to believe you're doing more than I know. Rebuild me gently, Lord. Take the shattered pieces and make something beautiful, not in spite of the cracks, but through them. Let my healing be more than recovery. Let it be restoration. Let it bring me back to who you created me to be before the world told me who I had to become. I miss that version of me, the one who believed freely, the one who loved boldly, the one who didn't flinch at dreams or brace for pain. If she's still in there, bring her back, even if it takes time. Even if it takes tears, even if it takes starting over. You're not afraid of that process, so I won't be either. Remind me that progress isn't always visible. That healing happens in layers. That some of the most sacred work happens beneath the surface, where only you can see. And in the meantime, give me glimpses of grace, small moments of joy, quiet reminders that you're near. Let laughter return in places I thought were permanently broken. Let softness rise where walls used to be. Let hope flicker again, even if just for a moment. I won't despise small beginnings. I'll take what you give and trust you to multiply it. And on the days I feel numb again, let me remember this prayer. Not as a ritual, but as a reminder that healing doesn't mean I won't hurt. It means I won't hurt alone. So if all I can do today is breathe and believe you're still working, let that be enough. It is enough. Because you are. You are enough. Always. There's a weight you've been carrying that no one else sees. It doesn't show up on scans or x-rays. It won't appear on your schedule or in your conversations. But you feel it. Every day. In your body. In your thoughts. The quiet moments when you try to breathe and it still feels like something's sitting on your chest. It's the burden of always being the strong one. Of showing up for others even when you're falling apart. Of managing everything and still wondering if you're enough. Of being present for people who never ask how you're doing. Of getting things done while your soul aches for rest. And for too long, you believe that if you don't hold it all together, everything around you will fall apart. But what if that belief is the very thing keeping you from healing? What if the strength you think is saving you is slowly draining you? What if you were never meant to carry this alone? You were never meant to live life as your own anchor. Even Jesus, perfect, divine, sovereign, did not carry his burden alone. On the road to the cross, his body broke under the weight, and Simon of Cyrene was called in to carry it with him. That moment wasn't a detour from the plan. It was a picture of grace, a reminder that even the most sacred burdens are not meant to be held in isolation. So why do you still believe you're supposed to be the exception? Why do you push through, grit your teeth, and say, "I'm fine," when you're breaking inside? There's no shame in being tired. There's no failure in needing help. There's no weakness in saying, "I can't carry this by myself anymore." That confession is not a collapse. It's a doorway. It's the opening that lets grace in. It's the moment heaven leans in closer, not to judge, but to lift. You were never created to be your own savior. And you don't have to prove your worth by how much you can endure without crumbling. There is a better way. And it begins with surrender. Not surrender to despair, but to truth. The truth that God does not call you to carry every burden on your back. He calls you to cast them, to place them into hands stronger than yours, kinder than yours, more patient than yours. But casting your burden isn't just a prayer you whisper once. It's a daily invitation, a rhythm of release, a habit of remembering you're not alone. Not in the decision-making, not in the waiting, not in the heartbreak, not in the hidden struggle. You are not abandoned. You are not invisible. You are not holding this whole thing up on your own. And if that's hard to believe, maybe it's because you've spent too long in survival mode. When your life becomes a series of reactions, it's easy to confuse anxiety with responsibility. You start to think that worry is part of wisdom. You begin to believe that being constantly overwhelmed is just what grown-ups do. But there's a difference between being responsible and being crushed. And God never asked you to carry more than your soul was built to hold. Sometimes the most faithful thing you can do is admit that the weight is too much and that you need help. That's not rebellion. That's reverence. That's what Jesus meant when he said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." He wasn't speaking poetically. He was offering an actual, tangible exchange. Your weight for his rest. Your fear for his peace. Your pressure for his presence. But here's the thing. You can't receive what he offers if your hands are still clenched around what you're trying to control. Let go. Not of everything. Just of what's breaking you. Just of what you were never meant to hold this tightly. That doesn't make you careless. It makes you courageous. Because letting go isn't giving up. It's giving over. It's saying, "I trust that someone stronger is with me." And he is. Even now. Even here. Even with all the unanswered questions and unresolved tension. He hasn't left. He hasn't turned away. He sees every unseen weight you carry. The fear you haven't spoken out loud. The grief you've been too busy to process. The worry that wakes you up at night and greets you before sunrise. He knows. And he cares. Enough to carry it with you. Enough to walk with you when you feel too tired to keep going. Enough to hold the pieces that feel too fragile to place in anyone else's hands. You don't have to hold us all together. You only have to be held. There's a kind of healing that doesn't begin with answers, but with honesty. And maybe that's where you start today. By being honest. By admitting that strong doesn't always feel sacred. That managing everything doesn't mean you're okay. That checking off to-do lists doesn't mean your heart is full. That getting through the day doesn't mean you're living whole. There's more for you than just survival. There's space for softness. There's room for rest. There's healing in surrender. And none of it requires perfection. Only presence. Only willingness. Only the quiet strength to say, "I can't do this without you." That's where burdens become blessings. Not because they disappear, but because you stop carrying them alone. That's where peace begins to grow. Not because circumstances change, but because you're no longer trying to control every outcome. That's where strength is redefined. Not by how much you hold, but by how much you're willing to hand over. So pause today. Take a breath. And ask yourself honestly, what have I been carrying that was never mine to carry alone? Whatever it is, God can take it. And he won't shame you for the time it took to release it. He'll just hold you while you do. You don't have to explain why it's heavy. You don't have to justify why you waited this long. You only have to be real. And once you are, healing can begin, not through striving, but through stillness. Through the slow, sacred act of saying, I'm not the only one responsible for holding everything together. And in that moment, the pressure breaks. Not because life is easier, but because you finally remembered you're not carrying it alone. It's hard to feel safe when your inner world keeps bracing for impact. When your nervous system has learned to expect the worst, even when the room is quiet. When calm moments feel unfamiliar and your body can't tell the difference between peace and danger. When comfort makes you suspicious. When stillness feels like the setup for something painful. And yet, deep down, there's a question you've been asking, maybe without words. Am I safe anywhere? Not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, mentally. Safe to breathe, safe to feel, safe to rest. The world doesn't always offer that kind of safety. It rewards performance. It claps for resilience. It watches how well you carry yourself, not how heavy your soul feels. But God isn't like the world. He doesn't ask you to mask your trembling before you enter His presence. He doesn't shame your sensitivity or tell you to just have faith. He invites you as you are, tired, unsure, raw. And in His presence, safety isn't a theory. It's a reality. You're not watched, you're known. You're not judged, you're held. You're not on trial, you're home. That changes things. Because when your heart is always defending itself, healing can't begin. But when it's safe, truly safe, it starts to unfold. Not all at once, not loudly, but faithfully. There is no safer place than the arms of the one who formed you. He remembers what your soul looked like before the world wounded it. And He's not afraid of how far you've drifted from that place. He's committed to bringing you back, not with pressure, but with peace. Not with shame, but with kindness. Not with timelines, but with tenderness. You may not trust easily anymore. Maybe you've been let down too often. Maybe promises were broken. Maybe people who were supposed to protect you caused the deepest pain. That makes sense. And God doesn't dismiss that. He honors it. But He also gently invites you into something better. Not easier, but better. His presence doesn't demand your guard down immediately. It simply says, you can rest now. I'm not going anywhere. Let that truth begin to work its way into the locked doors of your heart. The ones you sealed shut because it hurt too much to leave them open. The ones you forgot even existed. The Spirit knows how to move through them. He doesn't kick them in. He knocks gently and waits and waits and waits until you're ready. And maybe tonight something in you is ready. Maybe not for everything, but for something. A softening, breath, a whisper of surrender. That's how trust begins, not with a leap, but with a lean. A leaning into the truth that God is not like the ones who hurt you. A leaning into the truth that you're not too much for Him. A leaning into the whisper that says, I don't have to hold myself together here. His presence holds what you can't. You don't have to be the strong one here. You don't have to have answers. You don't have to be fixed before you're found. You are already found, already loved, already chosen, already safe. That doesn't mean your anxiety disappears overnight. It means anxiety doesn't own you. It means fear doesn't define you. It means trauma doesn't have the final word. Because safety is the soil where healing begins to grow. And His presence is the safest soil your soul will ever know. So what does it mean to rest in that? It means you stop rushing. You stop forcing. You stop apologizing for being human. You sit in the stillness, even if it's awkward at first. You let your tears come, even if they surprise you. You let silence say what words can't. Because sometimes healing happens in the hush, when the room is quiet enough to hear your breath again. When you stop managing your pain and start feeling it with someone beside you. And that someone isn't rushing to fix you. He's not impatient. He's not disappointed. He's not uncomfortable with your brokenness. He just stays. He stays through the tension. He stays through the shutdown. He stays through the questioning. He stays when others walk away. That's what love does. And perfect love, the kind God offers, casts out fear, not by removing every threat, but by replacing panic with presence. The moment you remember you're not alone is the moment fear begins to lose its grip. You are not the protector of your own soul. You don't have to keep watch alone. You don't have to lay in bed at night calculating how to keep everything and everyone together. You don't have to perform peace. You can receive it. You can let your shoulders drop. You can unclench your jaw. You can stop rehearsing the worst-case scenario because someone else is watching now. Someone else is holding space for you, and he's not going anywhere. You are safe in his presence, not because the danger never existed, but because you're no longer facing it alone. Not because every wound is healed, but because the one who heals is near. Near enough to catch your tears before they fall. Near enough to steady your breathing when it catches in your throat. Near enough to replace your tension with tenderness. That's what he does. He replaces. He trades burden for rest, panic for peace, loneliness for love. And the more you rest in that, the more your soul remembers what safety feels like. Not in a place, in a person. And not a person who comes and goes, but one who stays. Even here, especially here, in the rooms you shut off, in the memories you avoid, in the nights that feel too heavy to carry. He is still present, still safe, still speaking calm over your chaos, still holding your heart with hands that don't drop fragile things. So let this be your anchor tonight. I am safe here, even if I don't feel it yet, even if it takes time to believe, even if trust is still hard. I am safe in his presence. Say it again. Say it until something in you breathes easier. Say it until the fear fades, not completely, but enough to rest. Say it until rest is no longer a stranger, but a homecoming. Say it until you believe it. Because it's true. You are safe. Right here. Right now. In him. Sleep was supposed to be a refuge, but lately it's become another battlefield. You close your eyes, hoping for silence, but your mind replays the day like a looped film. You shift under the covers, but your thoughts have already started running. Everything that wasn't said, everything that still needs to be done, everything that could go wrong tomorrow. You reach for comfort, but find tension. You try to breathe deeply, but even that feels mechanical. Your body is still, but your spirit is loud. And yet, even here, especially here, Jesus is near. He's not waiting for you to quiet every noise before he joins you. He's not watching from the distance, waiting for the moment when you finally drift off. He's already beside you. Not because you prayed perfectly today, not because you've earned rest, but because that's who he is, near, present, patient. Closer than the pillow under your head. Closer than the breath in your chest. Sleep is not something you have to fight for. It's something you're allowed to receive. You weren't created to live in motion all the time. You weren't built to carry stress into the night. Your mind wasn't meant to stay on high alert while your body pleads for peace. That tension, that pressure, that feeling of lying in bed while your brain keeps solving problems, that's not your job anymore. You can hand it over, and not into emptiness, but into the presence of the one who never sleeps, the one who holds what you've been trying to fix. The one who already sees tomorrow and isn't anxious about it. Sometimes the invitation isn't to pray longer. It's to stop trying. To turn off the mental dialogue and simply whisper, Jesus, stay with me tonight. That prayer doesn't have to be poetic. It doesn't have to be powerful. It just has to be honest. Because honesty is where peace starts. Peace never asked you to be impressive. It asked you to be present. Present enough to let go of control, of results, of performance, and sink into something softer than fear. You don't have to force your thoughts to stop. You just have to stop following them. Let them pass like waves. Let them drift without grabbing onto each one. And when they rise again, come back to the breath. Come back to the stillness. Come back to the name that steadies the storm inside. Jesus. He's not a distant observer. He's not grading how well you've handled your emotions. He's here, in this room, in this hour, in this heartbeat. And what you bring into this space, fear, worry, fatigue, numbness, he meets with compassion, not correction. He knows how fragile the line is between exhaustion and despair. He knows how often your mind lies to you in the quiet. He knows how the night can amplify everything you manage to ignore in the day. But he also knows how to hold you in that place. Not rush you, not fix you, just hold you. Sleep isn't just a physical need. It's a spiritual reset. A reminder that the world doesn't fall apart when you rest. That heaven doesn't collapse when you stop trying. That your worth doesn't decrease when you unplug. That your value isn't tied to how productive you were today, or how still your thoughts are now. Rest isn't something you earn. It's a gift you receive. And receiving doesn't require effort. It requires trust. It's hard to trust when you've been hurt. Hard to release when you've lived in a constant state of tension. But if there's one place you can start, it's here. Not with giant declarations, but with a single breath. Not with spiritual perfection, but with a whisper of surrender. Jesus, be with me while I sleep. That one sentence opens a space nothing else can fill. It changes the atmosphere. It reminds your soul that you are not left to wander through the night alone. You're not on your own to battle worry in the dark. You're not responsible for keeping yourself safe. You are kept by love, by grace, by presence. And the one keeping you doesn't get tired, doesn't forget, doesn't disappear. You've spent enough nights trying to manage sleep like a task. Tonight, let it be different. Let your bed become an altar, not of effort, but of rest. Let the quiet be sacred, not scary. Let the room be filled, not with pressure, but with peace. You don't have to fix your heart before you sleep. You just have to open it. Let Jesus into this moment, not the polished version of you, but the one lying here, still wide awake, hoping for rest. He won't ask for more than you can give. He won't push past your limit. He won't require anything except honesty. And honesty sounds like this. I'm tired, Lord. I've tried everything. I've read the verse. I've breathed deep. I've set the lights just right. But my mind is still moving. I need you to meet me here. That prayer is not weak. It's worship. It's trust in its most raw form. And that's what moves the heart of God, not perfection, but dependency. Jesus didn't say, "Come to me, all who have figured it out." He said, "Come to me, all who are weary." And tonight, that's enough. You are enough. Even in this state, even with your questions, even with your unfinished emotions, you're enough to be loved, enough to be held, enough to be kept through the night. So let go. Not all at once, just one thought at a time. Release the pressure, the comparison, the replay, the fear. Replace it not with empty affirmations, but with presence. Let His presence be the pillow your soul rests on. Let His closeness become the blanket your heart wraps itself in. Not because the noise is gone, but because love is louder. You are safe now. Safe enough to release the tension in your jaw. Safe enough to uncurl your fists. Safe enough to stop anticipating the worst. Safe enough to sleep. And if you wake again in the night, don't panic. Don't judge. Just return. Return to that breath. Return to that name. Return to that whisper. Jesus, stay with me. He will. He always does. Even when the feelings fade. Even when the dreams are restless. Even when your heart feels heavy and your body feels tired of trying. He stays. Not because you're strong. Because He is. Because His love doesn't clock out when your eyes close. Because His faithfulness isn't based on your performance. Because His presence is not a reward. It's a promise. And tonight, that promise is for you. Right here. Right now. Even in this. Especially in this. There's a war happening inside your head that no one else sees. It doesn't show up in conversations. It hides behind smiles and nods. It moves quietly beneath the surface while you go through your day, pretending everything's fine. But you know it's not. You know the tension. You felt the fog, the racing thoughts, the looping doubts, the fear that settles in right as you're about to rest, the lies that sound like your own voice. And it's not that you've given up. It's that you're tired of fighting with a weapon you don't understand. So tonight, let's choose a different response. Not more effort. Not more noise. Not more mental gymnastics. Let's declare peace, not as a wish, not as a slogan, but as a truth spoken out loud, even if your heart isn't sure yet. Because peace doesn't wait for your emotions to line up. It shows up when you speak with authority, not from pride, but from a place of being fully known and still fully loved. You don't have to feel strong to speak truth. You don't have to be fearless to declare what's real. You just have to believe that what God says about your mind is more trustworthy than the storm inside it. That belief isn't fake. It's faith. And faith speaks. Faith says, "This noise doesn't define me." Faith whispers, "This fear isn't permanent." Faith stands in the middle of chaos and says, "Peace, be still," not because the storm is gone, but because it knows who speaks with authority over it. That same voice that calmed the sea lives in you. That same spirit that hovered over the waters at creation lives inside your thoughts, hovering even now. And where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is peace. So begin here, not in silence, but in declaration. Say it, "My mind is not a battlefield. It is a place where God dwells." Say it again, "I may feel overwhelmed, but I am not overcome." Keep going even if your voice shakes, even if doubt screams louder, even if anxiety calls you a liar. Truth isn't afraid of volume. It knows its power. And tonight, power is found not in striving, but in surrendering to a reality deeper than emotion. You're not denying your experience. You're anchoring your identity. You're planting words like seeds, even in rocky soil, believing something will grow. And something will. Not overnight, but over time. Peace isn't always immediate. Sometimes it settles gradually, not in waves of euphoria, but in gentle reminders that you're not ruled by fear. Sometimes it comes in the breath after the declaration, the pause after the prayer, the softness that follows a hard day. Let that softness find you now, not because you mastered your thoughts, but because you've decided they don't have the final word. Speak life over the places where despair is camped. Speak calm into the corners where panic lingers. Speak kindness to the parts of yourself that have only heard criticism. And when your mind tries to resist, keep speaking. Because every declaration is like light turning on in a dark room. You don't have to fight the darkness. You just have to flip the switch. So declare this. My thoughts do not define my worth. My mental chaos is not louder than God's presence. My peace is not gone, it's returning. I am not alone in this. Jesus is closer than my fear. You don't have to make the storm stop. You only have to remember who is in the boat with you. That memory changes everything. Not the circumstances, but the perspective. You're not abandoned in this sea of uncertainty. You're accompanied. And peace is a person, not a product. His name is Jesus. And where he is, fear has no permanent home. That doesn't mean fear disappears instantly. It means it no longer dominates. It no longer gets to steer your day. It no longer controls your night. Because something stronger is present. And you've given it permission to speak louder. That's what declaration is, permission for truth to rise above emotion. Permission for God's promises to echo louder than doubt. Permission for rest to enter a place that's only known resistance. So speak again. I welcome peace into my thoughts. I allow calm to take root, even when I don't feel it yet. I make space for grace to sit with me tonight. These are not empty affirmations. They're anchors, placed intentionally, held consistently, spoken faithfully. An anchored peace is more powerful than momentary calm, because anchored peace doesn't rely on perfect circumstances. It stays through the storm. It holds while questions swirl. It remains when emotions shift. It reminds you that your mind isn't a curse. It's a creation. And your Creator has not left you alone in it. He's not watching from afar, waiting for you to figure this out. He's here. No, even with all this mess, even with all the overthinking, even when you can't trace the origin of your anxiety, even when you feel like a stranger to your own peace, He's still present, still patient, still powerful. And when you speak, He responds, not because you said it right, but because you said it at all. He honors the courage it takes to speak in the dark, to call light into spaces that haven't known it in a long time, to declare peace not as a theory, but as a choice. That choice changes everything. Because once you decide that fear doesn't own your mind, it loses territory. Once you decide that love gets the final word, darkness loses its grip. Once you open your mouth to bless what used to torment you, healing begins. And healing isn't always loud. Sometimes it's subtle. Like a breath that doesn't hurt. Like a silence that isn't scary. Like a thought that ends with hope. Those moments matter. They're not small. They're sacred. They mark the shift from surviving to healing. From bracing to breathing. From spiraling to resting. And even if it's slow, it's real. So don't stop declaring. Even when nothing seems to change. Especially then. Because that's when peace grows roots. Not in feelings, but in faith. And faith doesn't need a perfect track record. It just needs space. Space you're making now by speaking what's true, even when your heart is unsure. So say it again. Peace belongs here. My mind is not my enemy. God is healing places I didn't know were broken. Love is restoring what fear has tried to destroy. And maybe that's enough for tonight. Not a complete transformation. Just a shift. Just a breath. Just the next right word. And sometimes that one word opens the door to rest. Some pain doesn't have a name. It just lingers quietly beneath the surface. It hides behind routine, smiles, and productivity. It whispers in the quiet moments, making your chest tighten for reasons you can't explain. It shows up when the world slows down, when you're finally alone with yourself, and suddenly you remember what you tried so hard to forget. That kind of pain doesn't always scream. It settles like dust, everywhere and nowhere at once. And maybe you've gotten good at ignoring it. Maybe you've convinced yourself you're fine. You've moved on. You've forgiven. You've healed. But then a memory stirs. A word triggers something. The silence feels too loud. And you realize there's still a part of you that hasn't caught up with the rest. A piece of your heart that's still sore, still guarded, still afraid to trust again. That's where the Holy Spirit begins to work. Not in the polished places, but in the ones you've kept hidden. He doesn't force healing on you. He invites you into it. And his invitation doesn't come with pressure. It comes with presence. You don't have to perform to be healed. You don't have to explain why it still hurts. You don't have to justify your delay. You only have to be open. And openness isn't loud. It sounds like a whisper. God, I don't know what to do with this. That whisper is enough. Healing doesn't begin with a solution. It begins with surrender. Not a dramatic display, just a small release of control. Breath, a pause, a willingness to feel again, even if it's uncomfortable. Because what the Spirit wants to do in you isn't superficial. He doesn't settle for surface relief. He wants to restore the places you've written off. The ones you thought were too broken, too painful, too complex. He knows exactly where to start. He's not overwhelmed by the mess. He's not afraid of your emotions. He doesn't back away from your history. He sees every layer, every scar, every defense mechanism. And still he stays. Still he speaks gently. Still he says, let me into this place. Let me sit with you here. Let me carry what you've been holding alone. You were never meant to heal yourself. That was never your job. Your role is to receive, to rest, to let love reach the places you stopped believing could change. That's what the Spirit does best. He restores what trauma tried to take. He replaces fear with tenderness. He exchanges bitterness for freedom. He turns your ache into something sacred, not by erasing it, but by walking with you through it. And walking is the key. Healing doesn't always come in a moment. Sometimes it unfolds slowly, quietly, with every step you take toward honesty. Every time you choose to bring your whole self to God, even the bruised parts, you open the door a little wider. There is no part of your heart He cannot touch. No memory too painful. No failure too shameful. No moment too dark. He enters them all, not as a guest, but as a healer. He knows where it hurts even when you can't find the words. He feels what you buried. He sees what you stopped looking at, and He still calls it worthy of healing. You don't have to be over it to begin. You don't have to understand why it still matters. You only need to let yourself feel again. Not all at once, just enough to say, "Come, Holy Spirit. I can't do this alone." And He will. Not with fireworks, but with gentleness. Not with pressure, but with patience. Not to force you forward, but to walk beside you. Sometimes the first sign of healing is tears you didn't expect. Sometimes it's the breath you forgot how to take. Sometimes it's the softness returning to a place that's been hard for too long. That softness is sacred. Let it stay. Let it speak. Let it show you what strength really looks like. It's not always loud or bold. Sometimes it's quiet enough to hear the Spirit say, "I'm still here," even after the heartbreak, even after the disappointment, even after the betrayal, even after the silence. He's still here. And He's not done. He's not done writing your story. He's not done rebuilding your heart. He's not done restoring what life has taken. But you must stop trying to skip the ache. There's wisdom in the wound. There's a song in the scar. There's beauty even in the parts you wish had never happened. The Spirit doesn't waste pain. He transforms it. He rewrites it. He gives it purpose. But first, He sits with it. He doesn't demand healing on a deadline. He doesn't shame you for not being better yet. He simply stays. And in that staying, something changes. Not because you made it happen, but because love has time. Grace doesn't rush. Peace doesn't pressure. Presence heals. And presence is what you need most. Not a plan. Not a perfect process. Just a presence that promises, "You're not alone in this." When shame tells you to hide, the Spirit calls you to come closer. When fear tells you you'll never change, the Spirit whispers, "Watch what I can do." When numbness tells you to shut down, the Spirit gently awakens you, one breath at a time. Let that be enough tonight. Not total healing, just the next small invitation. The next small yes. The next small surrender. Because every yes is holy. Every surrender is sacred. Every tear is seen. And every wound is welcome in the arms of the one who knows what it feels like to bleed and still love. The Spirit is not in a hurry. He's not looking for a performance. He's waiting for your permission. So give it. Even quietly. Even wearily. Even tearfully. Say, "Come in." Let Him into the grief. Into the memories. Into the numb places. Into the hopes you buried. Into the parts of yourself you thought weren't worth saving. He's ready, and He knows what to do. Better than any words, better than any strategy, better than anything you've tried on your own. He doesn't come to patch you up. He comes to live in you, to dwell, to restore, to renew. And He'll do it gently. You don't have to fear His hand. He doesn't move quickly to tear you down. He rebuilds brick by brick, layer by layer, prayer by prayer, breath by breath. And the heart He's restoring isn't the same one you had before. It's deeper, stronger, softer, more resilient because it's rooted in something unshakable. That's what healing looks like. Not forgetting what happened, but being freed from its power. Not erasing the pain, but transforming its meaning. Not ignoring the scar, but letting it testify, "I was broken, but now I'm healing." That's the work of the Spirit. That's what He's doing in you. Right now, even here, even in this, there's a kind of rest that sleep can't give. A stillness that doesn't come from quiet rooms or empty calendars. A peace that isn't tied to external conditions. You may have tried everything. Dim lights, deep breathing, soft music, all the things the world recommends to calm the body. And still, your soul feels restless. Still, your heart runs in circles. Still, your thoughts refuse to settle. That's because true rest doesn't begin in your body. It begins in His presence. It begins when you stop chasing comfort and finally collapse into it. When you stop trying to earn peace and realize it's already been offered. When you stop convincing yourself you're too broken to rest and let the arms that formed you hold what the world wore down. God never designed you to carry everything. He didn't form you in His image just to watch you unravel in private. He didn't breathe life into you so you'd spend your days bracing for the next disaster. He shaped your soul for rest, for belonging, for connection. And nothing connects you more deeply to that design than resting in the one who gave it to you. That kind of rest is not passive. It's powerful. Because it defies the pace of a world that keeps demanding more. It resists the narrative that says you're only valuable when you're productive. It pushes back against the lie that you have to earn space to breathe. When you enter God's embrace, you stop striving. Not because you gave up, but because you remembered you were never alone. His arms are not like human arms, limited by fatigue or expectation. They are eternal, unshaken by time, unafraid of your wounds, unmoved by the performance you've used to hide your pain. You don't have to explain yourself when you enter them. You don't have to rehearse the reasons why you're tired. You don't have to filter your grief or phrase your prayers a certain way. You only have to come. We often think of rest as something soft, something quiet. But sometimes, rest is the most courageous decision you can make. To stop fighting, to stop fixing, to stop rehearsing all the ways you're not enough, and to fall fully, finally, into the embrace of a God who's been waiting with arms wide open. He doesn't ask you to clean yourself up first. He doesn't expect perfection. He only asks for surrender. Not the kind that feels like defeat, but the kind that sets you free. There's something sacred that happens when you stop explaining your pain and start exposing it. Not to people who won't understand, but to the one who already does, and still loves you, still holds you, still wants you close. That's where rest begins. In knowing that you are still wanted at your weakest. You are still welcome at your lowest. You are still held when everything else has let you go. God's embrace is not a metaphor. It's real. You may not feel it physically, but it wraps your mind. It surrounds your spirit. It softens your heart. And when the world feels too loud, too fast, too sharp, that embrace becomes the one place where you can breathe again. There is no expiration date on this invitation. There is no performance clause. There is no moment when God gets tired of holding you. He doesn't withdraw when you mess up. He doesn't recoil when you cry again for the same reason. He doesn't check the clock when your pain stretches longer than expected. He stays because love stays, and His love is eternal. There is no night dark enough to drive Him away, no thought heavy enough to weigh Him down, no fear loud enough to drown out His whisper. You are safe here, and not just now, forever. That's what makes His embrace different. It doesn't change based on your circumstances. It doesn't withdraw when your faith wavers. It doesn't falter when your strength runs dry. It remains. When your heart is breaking, it holds. When your voice is shaking, it hears. When your hope is fading, it anchors. Because God's embrace isn't just a place, it's a person. And He doesn't just give rest, He is rest. He is the stillness you crave in a restless world. He is the peace you search for in all the wrong places. He is the answer to the ache that never quite goes away. And tonight, He is with you. Not just watching you. Not just listening from a distance. He is here, holding you closer than your pain, stronger than your fear, gentler than your shame. And you don't have to do anything but receive it. That's hard sometimes. To receive, to not earn, to not prove, to just be. But rest begins when you believe that you're still worthy of love, even when you feel unlovable. It grows when you stop asking what you have to do and start trusting what's already been done. Because this embrace, it's not conditional. It's eternal. There will be days you forget. There will be nights you doubt. There will be moments you wonder if this peace is even real. But even then, He holds you. Even when you run, He reaches. Even when you push away, He stays. Even when you fall asleep mid-prayer, He keeps watching. That's the kind of love you were made for. Not fleeting, not fragile, not based on how well you're doing, but rooted in who He is and who you are to Him. You are not a burden. You are not too much. You are not forgotten. You are embraced. You are seen. You are held. So let go, not of hope, but of hustle, not of belief, but of busyness, not of dreams, but of desperation. Let go of everything you've been holding so tightly. Let it fall into hands that won't drop you. Let your breath slow. Let your body rest. Let your heart be quiet. You don't have to keep proving yourself. You've always belonged here. In this embrace. In this love. In this peace. And tonight that's enough. Not because everything is fixed, but because you remembered where to rest. Not in control. Not in answers. Not in certainty. But in Him. Only in Him. Always in Him. Maybe you didn't get every answer you wanted. Maybe the heaviness hasn't vanished completely. Maybe you're still carrying pieces of pain you don't know where to place. But something shifted. Not loud, not dramatic, but sacred. A flicker of peace. A sigh that didn't feel forced. A small space in your soul where it suddenly felt okay to just exist. No performance. No pretending. Just presence. That's what healing begins with. Not perfection, but permission. Permission to stop running for a moment. To stop managing emotions like a checklist. To stop holding your breath in fear of what might break next. Somewhere in the stillness, you found a truth deeper than your fears. You are not doing this alone. You never were. You're held, even in your unraveling. You're seen, even when you try to hide it well. You're safe, even when you don't feel steady. And tonight, maybe for the first time in a long time, you remembered what your soul has always known. Rest is not weakness. It's worship. And it's yours. There's something beautiful about learning to rest before you're completely okay. About letting peace come before all the pieces are fixed. About realizing that you don't have to wait until you're better to breathe again. The Savior you follow doesn't just walk with the strong. He kneels beside the weary. He shares the weight. He whispers calm where chaos has lived too long. He's been here all along, not waiting for the perfect version of you, but loving the honest one. And that's the one He holds close. If anything you've heard whispered back to your heart tonight, hold on to it. Don't let the rhythm of the world steal the stillness you just touched. Don't rush back into noise. Let this moment root something deeper in you. Because sometimes what your soul needs most isn't another answer, but a rhythm to return to. A space you can come back to again and again when everything else feels loud and scattered. That's what Calm Your Heart was created for. Not for the perfect moments, for the honest ones. For people like me who are tired of hiding but scared to fall apart. For souls who need structure but not pressure. For hearts that need permission to rest before they recover. It's not a fix, it's a companion. A place to breathe when the world keeps spinning. A space where grace isn't rushed and peace doesn't feel like a performance. If this journey spoke to you, if something inside felt seen, even in silence, this guide was made with you in mind. Inside, you'll find scripture-based meditations, simple but powerful prayers, and gentle prompts that meet you where you really are. There's no rush, no pressure, no checklist, just room. Room to slow down. Room to process. Room to breathe again. If this prayer feels like your own, then this journey is for you too. A path not paved by pressure, but by presence. Click the link in the pinned comment and give yourself a place to start healing. Not once you're strong. Right now, exactly as you are. You don't have to keep doing this alone. You don't have to figure it all out before you begin. You don't even have to know what healing looks like yet. You just have to begin. One breath, one page, one pause at a time. So before you go, let me ask you something only your soul can answer. What if your healing doesn't start when everything's quiet outside, but when you find quiet inside? And what if that quiet isn't something you earn, but something you receive? If that possibility stirs something in you, then keep walking with me. Subscribe, come back, stay close. This isn't a one-time video. This is the beginning of a rhythm. A new way to live. A new way to breathe. Your heart was made for peace. Let's keep finding it together.